What's up, guys? I'm Nobody Special. Are you paying attention to what's going on in Kazakhstan right now? Well, if you're not, I guarantee you world leaders all over the planet are. Because what's going on in Kazakhstan may just be the first of many shoes to drop in 2022. And if there's one thing this year is going to be known for, in my opinion, it's going to be social unrest. Because when it gets too expensive to eat or heat or just live, people get pissed off. You ready? Hit it. Thank you for joining me. I'm Jack Gamble, and I'm Nobody Special. And there is widespread social unrest going on in Kazakhstan right now as the government recently lifted price controls on LPG, or liquid petroleum gas, which is the main transportation fuel in Kazakhstan. And when those price controls were lifted, the price doubled overnight. That made a lot of people very, very angry with the government. And once those protests started, the government quickly backtracked, reinstituted the price controls, but it seems it has not helped things as the country's parliament has just resigned. Government buildings are on fire. There's video of flashbang grenades being thrown into crowds. Things are spiraling out of control very quickly in Kazakhstan right now. And looking back at relatively recent history, we can see this was a very predictable outcome and that this could be a sign of some very dangerous things to come in the future in other parts of the world. Now, before we get into this, folks, I have to ask, could you please like this video, subscribe to my channel, and hit that notification bell? It really helps me out. It helps me to keep this channel growing. I'd be forever in your debt. And with that, it is time to shrink my big, fat melon of a head. And we are going to get into this article. And folks, you better believe world leaders all over the planet are paying very close attention to what happens in Kazakhstan right now. Now, this is on Argos Media. Rising LPG prices prompt crisis in Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan's government has resigned and a state of emergency has been declared in parts of the country following violent protests over rises in LPG prices. President Kasym-Zhomart announced the resignation of the government today during a meeting about the socio-economic situation in the countries. Ministers will continue to carry out their duties until a new government is formed. Tokayev said the government had proved unable to carry out one of its main tasks, keeping inflation in check. Now, keep in mind, this is the president firing the whole government because the president is trying to keep his job. Tokayev is trying very hard to stay in power here. He's throwing everybody that works for him under the bus. States of emergency were declared in the western Mangistau region, as well as the country's largest city, Almaty. Yesterday, the government said the price of LPG, widely used as a motor fuel in Kazakhstan, would be reduced to 50 tenge, or 11 cents per liter, in Mangistau. Kazakhstan's energy minister has said the previous day that the price of LPG in the region was 80 tenge per liter. So you have seen nearly a doubling of the price of LPG. Now, real quick, I just want to show you some of the videos that are on Twitter right now. Now, there is a nationwide internet blackout going on in Kazakhstan right now because one of the first things authoritarian governments do when they're trying to stay in power is they shut down communications to their people. So this is not at all surprising, but I just want to play a couple of these videos. Here you can see the military pulling back as the crowd advances. Now, I just want to show you this video here. This is in the commercial capital of Almaty. This is the government building here where we can see flashbang grenades going off at the entrance to the building as riot police try to maintain some control. Here is a close-up view of that last video. Now, here's another video here showing Kazakh soldiers appear to be taken prisoner by a mob. Now, none of these soldiers are armed. I don't have any context for this video. And again, there's almost no reporting going on inside the country because the government has blacked out the internet. Again, none of these troops appear to be armed. I don't know what is going on here. No context whatsoever, so there may be more to this story, but this one is making the rounds on Twitter. Now, there's a couple things I want to address with what's going on in Kazakhstan. First of all, A lot of this has to do with energy infrastructure has just been neglected worldwide for way too long. We've been acting like unicorns and rainbow can power a modern society. They cannot. And if you neglect your existing energy infrastructure while you talk about these fairy tale energy sources that are going to magically materialize in the future, this is what happens. There's been widespread fuel shortages in this part of the region, not just in Kazakhstan, but in the neighboring countries as well. Now, the natural solution to shortages is higher prices, but we have very authoritarian governments in this part of the world, and in order to maintain control, a lot of these governments implement price controls. Well, price controls don't work if you don't let prices naturally rise as they want to try to discourage consumption and destroy some of that demand. Well, this is what happens. The shortages became so bad that the government was eventually forced to lift the price controls, and the prices doubled instantly. Kind of like what happened in 1973 when Nixon withdrew his price controls. The same thing happened. Price controls do not work. The natural solution to shortages is higher prices. People don't want to hear that, but that is the reality. Now, the second thing you have to keep in mind is this is just people upset over energy prices, all right? Right now, it's energy. Tomorrow, it's going to be food. And you better believe that global leaders are paying very close attention here because when it gets too expensive to eat, people get pissed off and governments topple. The last time we saw this, 2011, the Arab Spring. And I just want to show you a couple of things from that period in history. Shrinking me again. Now, first of all, what we're looking at here is the UN Food and Agriculture Organization's Food Price Index. Okay, now this is going all the way back to the year 2000, and you can see the last time the food price index was anywhere near this level was late 2011, i.e. the beginning of the Arab Spring, and the time before that was in 2008, and again in 2008 we had widespread rioting all over the world related to food shortages. So we are here at this historically very dangerous level in global food prices where, historically speaking, anytime we get this high, you get widespread social unrest breaks out all over the world. The last time was in the Arab Spring. Now, that's not to say that food riots just spring out of nowhere, okay? A lot of times you have these pre-existing tensions or socioeconomic disparities, and then when the food prices are added on top of that, that's the spark that ignites the fire. And in 2011, that was in Tunisia where the Arab Spring started. That's when a guy named Mohamed Bouazizi lit himself on fire in protest of his food cart being seized by the municipal government. The government was taking away people's ability to just make a living, to just exist in the world. They were extorting people. They were treating them terribly. And this one poor guy was driven to set himself on fire in protest. And people were so angry at that story that one by one regimes in the whole region started to topple. And you even had in Libya Muammar Gaddafi, who ruled that country for almost 50 years. Right? Muammar Gaddafi made powerful enemies all over the world, and he managed to stay in power. But when he saw what was going on in Tunisia, the first thing he did was try to lower food prices in Libya because he saw what was coming, and it was too little too late. Gaddafi survived how many American presidents and how many armed conflicts, but he could not survive his own angry people. He was horribly beaten to death by a mob of his own people shortly after the food riots broke out in Tunisia. And we still have an incredibly bloody civil war being fought in Syria that started in 2011 with the Arab Spring. Now, again, what's going on in Kazakhstan right now is related to energy prices, not food prices. But if you've been following my channel, you've been seeing some of the videos I've been doing about fertilizer prices and how these big spikes in natural gas and energy prices are causing the prices of fertilizer to increase. When fertilizer increases, farmers are put under pressure. You get rising food prices. You get lowering crop yields as farmers cut back on fertilizer application. That means food next year is going to get much, much more expensive. And as we saw in that FAO chart, food is already historically expensive, and it's only going to go up from here. So global leaders right now are walking a very fine line. They know this. They're very aware of this. So what are they going to do? How are they going to manage it? Well, we've seen they make some of the same stupid and predictable moves that we've seen them make in history. Number one, they will attempt price controls. Those price controls will not work, as we've seen in Kazakhstan, as we saw in the U.S. in 1973. Price controls don't work, but they'll try it again. The other thing you're going to see them do is you'll see these world leaders will try somehow to deflect anger away from themselves. Now, there's two ways historically they've done that. Number one, start a war. Scary as that sounds, one way to keep the public's anger off of you is to give them some foreign boogeyman to hate on. It's exactly what the military junta in Argentina did with the Falkland Islands in the 1980s. Of course, it didn't work out very well for them in that scenario. But look at what we have going on. Eastern Europe, around Taiwan, certainly in the Middle East. There is any number of conflicts around the world that could flare up that powerful people in other countries latch onto to try to give their people this foreign boogeyman to hate on so that they can avoid any accountability for the economic situation in their own countries. Another thing we've seen powerful elites do throughout history is divide the population up into smaller and smaller groups and get them to hate each other and to fight each other, again, to deflect the anger away from themselves. What do you see happening right now? Well, we see people being broken up according to, medical conditions, or people who get a certain treatment versus people who don't want to get a certain treatment. We see people being told they're not allowed to travel, they're not allowed to buy food, they're not allowed to go to church or do whatever if they don't get a certain medical treatment. Globally, we're already seeing powerful people create this boogeyman to blame everything on to avoid any accountability for themselves. You may also see powerful people try to use things like demographics to break us up into groups and make us fight or make us hate each other. If you think I'm kidding, look at what's going on in the news. Look at all of these circus trials that have been getting all this attention. All these relatively unimportant but symbolic cases that make us angry at each other and make us want to fight each other, and thus powerful people can avoid answering difficult questions about why they're unable to provide energy or food security. Although the one trial that there weren't any cameras in the courtroom was that Ghislaine Maxwell trial, because that's one that makes people angry at the rich and powerful. No cameras in that courtroom. That's interesting. So long story short, in my opinion, what's going on in Kazakhstan right now, unfortunately, is a preview of what is to come. And I think 2022 and 2023 will go down in history as periods of widespread social unrest globally caused by energy and food prices and shortages. And if there's one thing governments are known to do, it's ignore history and make the same stupid mistakes over again. And rather than address the root causes of these issues, like runaway central banks, broken currencies, decrepit infrastructure, instead we'll see world leaders opt to use these tried and true wrong solutions, such as price controls, such as sowing division within their populations, or even going so far as to start wars, not to achieve any military objective, but just to maintain their own grip on power. Guys, I want to thank you for your time. Thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to my channel, hit that notification bell. It really helps me out. And until next time, live small and dream big.